The morning sun cast long shadows across the crystal fields of Kepler 442b. When the first explosion shook the ground, High Cultivator Ashen dropped his reading tablet and rushed to the window of his tower. Black smoke rose from the eastern farming district where millions of his people grew the special grain that fed half their world. "Sir, we have urgent readings from the orbital sensors," called his aide, a young Velthari named Joran, whose pale blue skin had turned almost white with fear. "Unknown ships have entered our system. Large ones." Shan felt his heart sink. The Velthari had lived in peace for over 3,000 years. Their world was known across the galaxy for its beautiful farms and peaceful ways. They had no enemies, because they had never made any. They traded food and art with other worlds, and asked for nothing in return except friendship. "How many ships?" Ashen asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Our computers count over 400 vessels, sir. They're not responding to our welcome messages." Another explosion rocked the city. This time it was closer. Through his window, Ashen could see people running in the streets below. His people had never seen war. They did not know what to do when death fell from the sky. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the unknown fleet." "Put it on the main screen." The image that appeared made Ashen step backward in shock. The creature on the screen looked like a giant lizard walking on two legs. Its teeth were sharp and yellow, and its eyes were cold and cruel. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding metal. "I am General Vorak of the Korthok Empire. Your world now belongs to us. You will surrender all your food production facilities and prepare your population for transport to our labor worlds. You have one rotation of your planet to comply. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your cities." The screen went dark. Ashen sank into his chair. The Korthok Empire. He had heard whispers of them in the trading posts near the Galactic Rim. They were conquerors who took what they wanted and cared nothing for the lives of those they crushed. They had destroyed dozens of worlds and enslaved millions of beings. "Sir, what do we do?" Joran asked. "Our defense grid can barely stop asteroids. We have no weapons, no warships, no soldiers." Ashen closed his eyes and tried to think. His people were farmers and artists and teachers. They had built a beautiful civilization based on growing things and creating beauty. They had never needed weapons because they had never imagined that someone would want to hurt them just to take what they had built. "Send out a distress call," he said finally. "Broadcast it on all frequencies. Tell the galaxy what is happening." "Here, but sir, who will help us?" "Most species will not fight the Korthok Empire. They are too strong." "Someone might listen," Ashen said, though his voice held little hope. "Someone might care that an entire world of peaceful people is about to be destroyed." Across the galaxy, Captain Jake Morrison was 3 hours into his patrol shift when his communications officer picked up the signal. Morrison was a career officer in the Earth Defense Force, a man who had spent 20 years keeping the peace. In the Outer Rim territories, his ship, the U's Guardian, was small but fast, designed for reconnaissance and patrol work. "Captain, I'm picking up a distress signal from the Kepler 442 system," said Lieutenant Commander Amy Rodriguez. She was young but sharp, one of the best communications officers Morrison had ever worked with. "It's broadcasting on all frequencies. Someone really wants to be heard." "Let's hear it," Morrison said. The voice that came through the speakers was soft and musical, nothing like the harsh military transmissions Morrison was used to. The speaker sounded afraid but was trying to stay calm. "This is High Cultivator Ashen of the Velthari people on Kepler 442b. Our world is under attack by the Korthok Empire. We are a peaceful people with no military forces. We have no weapons to defend ourselves. We are farmers and artists. We have never hurt anyone." Morrison felt his jaw tighten. He had heard of the Korthok. They were one of the worst predator species in the galaxy, the kind that gave spacefaring civilizations a bad name. The message continued. "We do not ask for soldiers or weapons. We know most species cannot stand against the Korthok fleet. We ask only for ships to evacuate our people, for food and medicine, for refugees, for any help that can be given. In return, we offer everything. We have our farming knowledge, our biotechnology, our art, our culture. We ask only that someone remember us, and perhaps save some of our people before our world dies. Ow. The transmission ended. The bridge was quiet for a long moment. How far to Kepler 442? Morrison asked. 18 hours at maximum warp, Rodriguez replied. But sir, we're just one ship, the message said. The Korthok have a full fleet. Morrison stared at the tactical display. The Korthak Empire had been expanding for decades, crushing peaceful worlds and taking whatever they wanted. Earth Command had been watching them for years, waiting for them to make a move that would justify intervention. But the galaxy was big, and Earth's fleets were spread thin, keeping peace in 100 different systems. Sir, Rodriguez prompted. Morrison made his decision. Send a priority message to Admiral Carter at Terra Nova Station. Full military alert. Include the Velthari distress call, and mark it urgent. What should I tell the Admiral, sir? Morrison thought about the fear in the Velthari leader's voice, about an entire world of peaceful people who were about to die simply because they had something the Korthok wanted. He thought about Earth's new policies regarding species, protection, and the responsibility that came with being one of the galaxy's few military powers. Tell her we have a situation that requires immediate fleet intervention. Peaceful species is under attack by the Korthak Empire. Asked for refugee ships and medical aid. Orson paused, then added, Tell her they're about to learn what humans do when someone threatens innocent people. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow but began typing. The message. She had served with Morrison long enough to recognize the tone in his voice. When the captain spoke like that, things were about to get very interesting, as the UES Guardian changed course toward Kepler 442. Morrison stared out at the stars and wondered if the Velthari had any idea what they had just set in motion. Had asked for aid, expecting maybe a few cargo ships and some medical supplies. They were about to get something very different, something the galaxy had never seen before. They were about to get humanity's third fleet. Admiral Lisa Carter was reviewing supply reports when the priority alert flashed across her command screen at Terra Nova Station. She had been expecting routine patrol updates, not a full military alert from the Outer Rim. The red warning symbols made her coffee grow cold as she read Morrison's message. Commander Phillips, get me everything we have on the Korthok Empire, she called to her aide, and wake up the War Council. We have a situation. Within an hour, Carter's conference room was filled with Earth's top military minds. The holographic display showed the Kepler 442 system with angry red markers indicating Korthok fleet positions. The enemy had over 400 ships surrounding the peaceful world. The Velthari sent out a general distress call, asking for refugee transport and medical supplies. Carter explained to the assembled officers. They have no military. They're asking the galaxy to help save their people before the Korthok wipe them out. Captain Sam Blake, commander of the flagship U.S. Independence, studied the tactical data. 400 Korthok ships. That's a full conquest fleet. They're not just raiding. They plan to strip that world completely. What do we know about the Velthari? Asked Colonel Jenny Mason, head of Marine Operations. Dr. Helen Wright, the fleet's chief xenobiologist, pulled up cultural files. They're remarkable. Species that reach the stars without ever developing weapons of war. Their entire civilization is built around growing things and creating art. According to galactic records, they've never been involved in any conflict. They don't even have a word for enemy in their language. Carter felt her anger building. Korthok were exactly the kind of predator species that Earth's military had been built to stop. For 50 years, humanity had been preparing for this moment, building fleets and training soldiers specifically to protect species like the Velthari. How fast can we get there? She asked. The third fleet can be ready to move in 6 hours. Blake replied. 200 ships, including the Independence. We'll have numerical disadvantage, but our technology is superior. The Velthari asked for supply ships, Dr. Wright said quietly. They have no idea what they've just triggered. Carter stood and looked at the display, showing the peaceful world under siege. Earth had learned hard lessons about what happened. When good people were left defenseless against those who would harm them, the Velthari represented something precious in the galaxy, something that had to be protected. Signal all ships. Operation Guardian Angel is a go. We deploy the Third Fleet immediately. Blake smiled grimly. The Korthok have no idea what's coming. 6 hours later, 200 human warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. The Third Fleet was humanity's pride. Ships, built with the latest technology and crewed by veterans who had spent years training for exactly this kind of mission. At the center of the formation, the UES Independence gleamed under the distant sun, her weapon systems charged and ready. Commander? Rick Stone led the reconnaissance wing ahead of the main fleet. His job was to make contact with the Velthari and assess the situation before the fleet arrived. As his ship approached Kepler 442, he could see the damage the Korthok had already done. Smoke rose from burning cities on the planet's surface. Is Commander Stone of the Earth Defense Force to any Velthari receivers? Please respond. The reply came quickly, full of desperate hope. Commander Stone, this is High Cultivator Ashen. Thank the stars, someone heard our call. How many supply ships have you brought? We have prepared landing areas for refugee evacuation. Stone looked at his tactical display showing the massive human fleet approaching behind him. He almost smiled at the innocence in the alien's voice. Cultivator, we didn't bring supply ships. We brought the Third Fleet. 200 warships. We're not here to evacuate you. We're here to remove your problem. There was a long silence. When Ashen spoke again, his voice was confused. I do not understand. 200 warships? But we asked only for refugee transport. We cannot pay for military intervention. We have no credits, no rare metals, no strategic resources. Sir, you don't understand, Stone replied gently. We don't want payment. We don't let bullies hurt innocent people. It's really that simple. On the planet's surface, Ashen stared at his communication screen in disbelief. In 3,000 years of galactic contact, no species had ever offered military aid without demanding something in return. Military forces were expensive. Warships cost fortunes to build and maintain. No one used them to help strangers. But why? He whispered. Why would you risk your ships and your people for us? Stone's voice came back clear and strong. 'Cause it's the right thing to do. 'Cause you asked for help, and we can give it. Because no one should have to watch their world burn while others look away. The words hit Ashen like a physical blow. He had heard that humans came from what the galaxy classified as a death world, a planet so dangerous that surviving there required constant struggle. He had imagined them as desperate refugees like his own people were about to become. He had never imagined they might be the galaxy's protectors, in orbit around Kepler 442b. General Vorak of the Korthok Empire was growing impatient. The Velthari had not responded to his ultimatum, which meant it was time to begin the real bombardment. His 400 ships were more than enough to crush any defense the peaceful farmers might attempt. General, we're detecting hyperspace signatures at the edge of the system, reported his sensor operator. More refugee ships come to watch their friends die, Vorak laughed. Let them see what happens to those who resist the Korthok Empire. When the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect battle formation, Vorak's laughter died. 200 sleek warships appeared in a coordinated pattern that spoke of military precision and professional training. These were not refugee ships or trading vessels. These were weapons of war. Signal the unknown fleet, Vorak ordered. Tell them to leave immediately or be destroyed. The response came from Admiral Carter herself, broadcast on all frequencies. So both the Korthok and the Velthari could hear, says Admiral Lisa. Carter of the Earth Defense Force Third Fleet, you are attacking a peaceful world without provocation. You will cease all hostile actions immediately and withdraw from this system. This is your only warning. Vorak stared at the transmission in disbelief. Deathworlders, he sneered. I have 400 ships. You have 200. Simple mathematics, Admiral. Carter's reply was cold as space itself. General, you're about to learn why nobody attacks peaceful worlds when humans are watching. You wanted a fight? You've got one. The Third Fleet began moving into attack formation, and General Vorak realized he had made a terrible mistake. General Vorak watched the human ships spread into attack formation and felt something he had not experienced in Decades of conquest, uncertainty. The Deathworlder vessels moved with a precision that spoke of countless hours of training and coordination. Their formation was not the loose arrangement of raiders or the desperate clustering of defenders. This was the disciplined advance of professional warriors. "Signal all ships," Vorak ordered. "Prepare for battle. These Deathworlders think they can intimidate us with fancy flying. Show them what 400 years of conquest experience means." But as the human fleet drew closer, Vorak's confidence began to crack. The enemy ships were not charging recklessly into battle. Instead, they moved like pieces on a chessboard, each vessel positioned to support the others. Their weapon systems showed energy readings that made his tactical officer's scales pale with worry. "General, their lead ships are targeting our bombardment platforms," his sensor operator reported. "They're not engaging our main fleet. They're protecting the planet below." On the UES Independence, Admiral Carter studied the tactical display with the calm focus of someone who had spent decades preparing for exactly this moment. The Korthok had numbers, but they were spread out around the planet in bombardment formation. They had not expected to fight a real battle. "Captain Blake, begin Phase 1. Commander Peterson, take your destroyer squadron and eliminate those orbital platforms. I want every gun pointed at the planet's surface destroyed in the first 10 minutes." "Understood, Admiral," came Peterson's crisp reply. "Beginning attack run now." Commander Julie Peterson's destroyers streaked toward the Korthok bombardment platforms like arrows shot from a bow. The platforms were massive structures designed to rain death on defenseless worlds, but they were not built to fight back against warships. Peterson's ships tore through them with surgical precision, their plasma cannons turning the platforms into expanding clouds of debris. "Platforms destroyed," Admiral Peterson reported. "The planet is safe from further bombardment." "General," Vorak snarled in rage. In less than 10 minutes, the humans had destroyed weapons it had taken his fleet hours to position. "All ships, attack formation, crush these Deathworlders." But the Korthok fleet was already falling apart. It had spent so long terrorizing peaceful worlds that they had forgotten how to fight real soldiers. Their ships moved in ragged formations, their captains more used to shooting at defenseless targets than engaging trained warriors. "Captain." Blake watched the enemy fleet try to reorganize and shook his head. "They have no discipline. Look at them flailing around like angry children." The battle that followed was less a fight than a demonstration. Human ships moved in perfect coordination, their captains anticipating each other's actions through years of joint training. Korthok vessels found themselves caught in crossfires, isolated and overwhelmed by superior tactics and technology. Commander Chris Thompson led his Marine boarding parties against 3 Korthok cruisers that had been crippled by the fleet's assault. His soldiers moved through the enemy ships like ghosts, their advanced armor and weapons making them nearly unstoppable. The Korthok warriors, used to fighting frightened civilians, broke and ran when faced with humans who fought back. "Admiral, we have General Vorak's flagship surrounded," Thompson reported over the comm. "Shields are down and his weapons are offline. Requesting permission to board." "Permission granted, Commander. Take him alive if possible. We want to send a message to the rest of the Korthok Empire." Thompson's Marines cut through the flagship's hull like it was made of paper. The Korthok crew surrendered without firing. A shot, their will to fight broken by the systematic destruction of their fleet. Thompson found General Vorak on his bridge, staring at the tactical display that showed his 400 ships reduced to wreckage and escape pods. "General Vorak," Thompson said politely, his rifle aimed at the alien's chest. "You are under arrest for crimes against peaceful species. Will come with us." Vorak looked at the human soldier with something like wonder. "You are from a death world. Your people should understand. The strong taking from the weak." "Why do you protect these farmers?" Thompson's reply was simple and final. "Because someone has to. The Battle of Kepler 4-4 to be lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the Korthok fleet had been reduced to scrap metal floating in space. A few dozen ships escaped to hyperspace, carrying word of their defeat back to the Empire. The rest were either destroyed or surrendered. On the planet's surface, High Cultivator Ashen watched the battle's end through orbital telescopes with tears streaming down his face. His people were safe. The destroyers who had come to enslave them were gone. Defeated by strangers who had asked for nothing in return, Admiral Carter's fleet took up defensive positions around the planet while rescue ships searched for Korthok survivors. Even in victory, the humans showed mercy to their enemies, fishing escape pods out of space and treating wounded prisoners. "Admiral Carter," came Ashen's voice over the communication system, "I do not know how to thank you. You have saved our entire world. What do you require as payment for this service?" Carter's response surprised everyone listening. "High Cultivator, we don't require payment. We do ask permission to establish a small naval base in your outer system, not to control your world, but to make sure no one else tries what the Korthok." "Did a naval base?" Ashen sounded confused. "But you could simply take whatever you wanted. You have the stronger fleet." "That's not how we do things," Carter replied. "We protect people. We don't conquer them." Dr. Helen Wright shuttled down to the planet's surface with a team of specialists. Her mission was not to steal Velthari technology, but to help them adapt their biotechnology for defensive purposes. She worked alongside Velthari scientists, sharing human knowledge freely while learning from their agricultural advances. The cultural exchange that followed amazed both species. The Velthari learned that strength could be used to protect rather than conquer. They saw how humans had turned their capacity for violence into a shield for the innocent. The humans discovered agricultural techniques that could help terraform dead worlds and medical advances that could extend life across the galaxy. 3 months after the battle, Ashen stood in his rebuilt capital city beside Admiral Carter and Dr. Wright. Construction robots worked alongside Velthari builders, raising new structures that were both beautiful and strong. For the first time in their history, the Velthari were learning to build with defense in mind. Admiral Ashan said, "My people have voted. We wish to join this alliance you speak of. We offer our knowledge and our friendship to humanity." Carter smiled. "And we offer our protection and our partnership to the Velthari. Together, we can build something the galaxy has never seen before." This news of the battle spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species called humans had destroyed an entire Korthok fleet to protect farmers they had never met. They asked for nothing in return except the chance to keep protecting people. The galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler 44 to be, the galaxy buzzed with whispers about the humans and their strange ways. In trading stations and diplomatic centers across the spiral arm, beings spoke in hushed tones about the Deathworlders who fought, not for conquest, but for protection. Ambassador Karen Lewis stood before the Galactic Council chamber, the first human ever invited to address the ancient governing body. Around her, representatives of dozens of species watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to deep suspicion. Some had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, did not like changes to the old ways. "Honored counselors," Karen began, her voice steady despite the weight of history pressing down on her. "I stand before you today to answer your questions about humanity's actions in the Kepler system and elsewhere." The Thakari representative, a warrior species that had built an empire through conquest, leaned forward with a sneer. "Human, your species claims to fight for peace, yet you possess more weapons than any 3 council members combined. You build fleets that could conquer worlds, yet you claim to be protectors. Explain this contradiction." Curran had expected this question. She looked around the chamber at beings who had spent millennia believing that strength meant the right to take whatever you wanted. "Counselor Thokmer, on our world, we learned a simple truth. The strong must protect the weak, or civilization dies. We did not come to the stars to be conquerors. We came to be guardians. Our weapons exist not to take, but to defend." The ancient crystalline collective spoke next, their voice like wind chimes in a storm. "Yet you ask for nothing in return for this protection. This is unprecedented in galactic history. All species seek advantage. What is your true purpose?" "Our purpose is exactly what we say it is," Karen replied. "We stop bullies from hurting innocent people. We ask for friendship and cooperation, nothing more." Admiral Jake Morrison, now promoted after his decisive action at Kepler 44 to be, watched the proceedings from Earth Command. He commanded a joint task force of human and Velthari ships, something that would have been impossible before the battle. The partnership had become a model that other species were beginning to copy. "Admiral, we have another request for protection," reported his aide, Lieutenant Susan Garcia. "The Zephyrian Republic. They say pirate fleets have been raiding their outer colonies." Morrison nodded. It was the 17th such request in 6 months. Word had spread that humans would actually help when asked. Species that had suffered in silence for centuries were finally speaking up. "Prep the 2nd Squadron," Morrison ordered. "Contact the Velthari. Our new defensive platforms might be useful for protecting Zephyrian space." The partnership between humans and Velthari had grown beyond anyone's expectations. The peaceful farmers had learned to adapt their biotechnology for defensive purposes, creating organic shields and healing systems that complemented human military hardware. In return, humans shared their protective strategies and helped the Velthari build the first defensive fleet in their species' history. On Kepler 44-B, High Cultivator Ashen walked through his capital city with Dr. Helen Wright and Captain Sam Blake. The rebuilt metropolis was both beautiful and strong, its organic architecture now reinforced with human defensive technology. Velthari children played in parks protected by shield generators, their games now including concepts their species had never known before. "It is strange," Ashen mused as they watched the children. "For 3,000 years, we believed that strength meant violence, and violence meant evil. You have shown us that strength can mean protection, and protection is the highest good." Wright smiled. "And you have shown us that a civilization can remain peaceful and beautiful, even while learning to defend itself. Our species complement each other perfectly." The changes went deeper than technology and tactics. The Guardian Corps, as the joint human-alien fleet had become known, was attracting volunteers from across the galaxy. Species that had never worked together were finding common ground in the protection of the innocent. Captain Blake received a priority message from Earth Command as they toured the city. His expression grew serious as he read it. "What is it?" Ashen asked. "The Galactic Council is demanding an explanation for our protection protocols. Some of the older species are not happy with the changes we've brought." Back at the council chamber, the debate had grown heated. The hegemony of Sarus, an ancient empire built on tribute and vassalage, spoke with barely controlled anger. "This human concept of free protection undermines the natural order. Species must earn security through service or payment, which freely destroys the foundations of galactic civilization." Karen faced the accusation calmly. "Counselor Sarus, with respect, a civilization built on forcing the weak to serve the strong is not worth preserving. We offer a better way." "And what happens when your species grows tired of this costly altruism?" demanded the Thakari representative. "What happens when humanity decides it wants something in return for all these weapons and ships?" Karen's answer. "Silence the chamber. Then we will have failed to live up to our own principles, and the galaxy will have the right to stop us. But until that day, we will continue to stand between predators and their prey." The Zephyrian representative, a small being whose people had suffered pirate raids for decades, stood slowly. "I have listened to this debate with growing amazement. My people asked 17 different species for help over the past 50 years. 17 times we were told the price was too high or the risk too great. The humans answered our call in 6 hours and asked for nothing but the chance to help. Perhaps the question is not why humanity protects the weak, but why the rest of us do not." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Other small species began to speak up, telling stories of human help freely given. The Velthari representative shared how humans had not only saved their world, but helped them become stronger while remaining peaceful. Admiral Carter reviewed the latest reports from across the galaxy. 23 species had now requested protection under what the media was calling the Deathworlder protection protocols. The Guardian Corps had grown to include ships and crews from a dozen different worlds, all united in the principle that the strong should shield the weak. "Admiral, we have a problem," her aide reported. "The Korthok Empire is massing fleets near the galactic rim. Intelligence suggests they're planning a major offensive to reclaim their reputation after the Kepler defeat," Carter studied the tactical reports. The Korthok had learned from their defeat and were building new ships designed specifically to fight humans. This time they would come prepared for real war. "Signal all Guardian Corps vessels," she ordered. "We knew this day would come. The Korthok want a rematch. Let's give them one they'll never forget." The final scene played out on Kepler 440b, where Ashen stood in his tower looking up at the stars. Human ships patrolled the edges of his system while Velthari defensive platforms hummed with protective energy. His people were safe, but more than that, they had found their place in a larger galactic community built on mutual protection rather than exploitation. He activated his communication system and sent a message that would be heard across the galaxy. To any species in need, to any world under threat, know this. The Deathworlders keep their promises. Ask for aid, and guardians will come. Peace is not free, but for those who cannot fight, others will fight for them. The strong protect the weak. This is the way. As his words spread through space, carried by relay stations to every corner of the galaxy, species that had hidden in fear for centuries began to hope. The age of predators ruling through fear was ending. The age of guardians had begun.